All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're not just going through another clinical topic. Nope. We're opening up an investigation. We're going to crack the case on a major, and I mean major, preventable harm that happens in our hospitals every single day. Our target? The hospital-acquired pressure injury. Let's begin.
So, I want to kick things off with a question for all you future nurses. Picture this. You've got a patient who is completely immobile, totally dependent on your care. What is the single most dangerous, yet, and this is the key part, absolutely preventable condition they could get while they're under your watch? Think about it. The answer is what this whole investigation is about.
So our PERP is the hospital-acquired pressure injury, or HAPI. Now, the official definition talks about localized damage to the skin, usually over a bony spot, like your tailbone or your heels. The weapon of choice? Intense, non-stop pressure. But it often has an accomplice, a nasty little force called shear. That's when the skin gets stretched and pulled, kind of like when a patient slides down in bed, and it just wreaks havoc on the tiny blood vessels underneath.
Okay, now that we know what we're looking for, it's time to officially open this case. Let's get into the file.
You know, in every case, it's so important to remember there's a real person at the center of it all. So to really understand this injury, we first have to understand our patient. Let's meet the man at the heart of our investigation, Mr. Jones.
Okay, here's his profile, and this is where your clinical reasoning really has to kick in. Mr. Jones is 76, check. Admitted for a hip fracture, huge check. He's waiting for surgery, double check. These are all massive flags for immobility. But we gotta look deeper. His type 2 diabetes? That means his circulation is already poor, and he might not even feel the early signs of damage. And the mild dementia? That means he can't always tell us he's in pain or that he needs to move. This isn't just a list of facts, people. This is a perfect storm of risk factors brewing.
Before we get into the nitty-gritty, I want you to feel what we're talking about. Seriously, try this with me. Wherever you are, just slip your hands under your legs, palms down, so you're sitting right on your knuckles. Just hang out like that for a couple minutes. We'll come back to this, I promise. Trust me, this little experiment is a key piece of evidence.
Okay, so in any good investigation, you got to identify the suspects, right? In our case, the suspects are all the different risk factors that basically conspired together to cause this injury. So let's break these culprits down into two groups. First, we have the intrinsic factors, the stuff coming from Mr. Jones himself. We've got his age, his poor nutrition, and look at that low albumin of 2.9. That's a huge red flag, plus his diabetes and dementia. Then you've got the extrinsic factors, the stuff from his environment. Being stuck in bed, moisture from incontinence, and that constant friction and shear every time he gets shifted around. See how it all adds up?
Now check this out. The admitting nurse used a critical tool, the Braden scale. And this, my friends, is our first major break in the case. This scale looks at 6 different risk categories, and Mr. Jones scored a 13. Just so you know, anything below 18 is considered at risk. So a 13, that puts him smack in the high-risk category. That number isn't just data, it's a blaring alarm bell telling us we need to act like yesterday.
So, we have the patient, we have the risks, now let's zoom in. Let's put this whole thing under a microscope and go right down to the cellular level to see how these risks actually create the damage. We're diving into the pathophysiology.
And this lays out the whole devastating chain of events. First, the pressure from his own body weight on the mattress gets higher than the pressure inside his tiny little blood vessels, his capillaries. That just chokes off the blood flow, which leads straight to step 2, ischemia. No blood means no oxygen, no nutrients. Then, in step 3, the tissue turns acidic and just starts to die off. That's necrosis. But here's the wild part, the real twist. When you finally move the patient and relieve that pressure, blood rushes back in, and that sudden return causes a huge wave of inflammation and even more damage. It's called a reperfusion injury. It's a cruel irony.
Now that we get the science behind it, it's time to look at the cold, hard facts, the physical evidence. We're going to analyze the wound itself and officially stage this injury based on what we can see.
So the incident report comes in. It's been 3 days since he was admitted. A nurse is doing a routine skin check, and this is what they found on Mr. Jones's sacrum.
The earliest you can catch it is a stage 1. This is basically a spot of redness that doesn't go away. When you press on it, it doesn't turn white for a second like healthy skin does. That's what we mean by non-blanchable erythema. It's the body's first major alarm bell.
But Mr. Jones was already past that point. His injury had progressed. He's got a stage 2, And that means the top layer of skin is broken. Think of it like a popped blister or a really shallow open sore. The body's first line of defense has been breached. This is our crime scene.
Now, if this gets worse, it turns into a stage 3. Here, we're talking about full thickness skin loss. The damage goes deeper into the fatty tissue below the skin. You can actually see the subcutaneous fat.
And the worst-case scenario? Stage 4. This is a catastrophic failure. The damage is so deep and extensive that you've got exposed muscle, bone, or tendons. It's just devastating.
And just to keep you on your toes, there are 2 other special classifications. An unstageable wound is one where the bottom of the wound is covered by dead tissue, slough or eschar, so you literally can't see how deep it is. And then there's the deep tissue injury, or DTI. This one's tricky because the skin on top is still intact, but underneath you see this deep purple or maroon color. That's a huge warning sign of severe damage lurking below.
Okay, you can take your hands out now. How do they feel? A little tingly? Numb? Take a look at your knuckles. You see that redness? That discomfort you're feeling right now? That is your body screaming at you. That is the very, very beginning of ischemia. That's a stage 1 injury in the making.
All right, we've staged the injury, we understand how it all went down. Now for the most important part. It's time for action. What's the intervention plan? How do we treat Mr. Jones's wound and, more importantly, make sure this never, ever happens again? The absolute gold standard for prevention is something called the SS-KIN bundle. You need to know this inside and out. S is for surface. Get that patient on a special mattress that redistributes pressure. The second S is for skin inspection. You're doing head-to-toe checks every single day to catch anything early. K is for keep moving. Turn and reposition your patient like clockwork every 2 hours. I is for incontinence management. Moisture is the enemy of skin, so keep your patient clean, dry, and protected. And finally, N is for nutrition and hydration. The body can't heal without the right building blocks, so push that protein in those fluids. So, what's in our medication toolbox? Well, barrier creams are your first line of defense for prevention. If you have an unstageable wound, enzymatic debriders can help chemically remove that dead tissue. If a wound gets infected, you'll reach for topical antiseptics. And this is so important. Analgesics for pain management, especially before you do a dressing change. And finally, to heal from the inside out, nutritional supplements are absolutely key for tissue repair. Okay, we're managing the immediate crisis for Mr. Jones, but our investigation isn't quite over. It's time to close this case file by focusing on what really solves this problem in the long run: education and the big takeaways for our nursing practice.
We've gone through the whole file. The patient profile, the risks, the science, the interventions. All the evidence is right here in front of us. So I'm going to leave you with one final crucial question. What is the single most critical nursing action that could have prevented this from ever happening to Mr. Jones? The answer isn't some high-tech device. It's you. It's proactive, consistent, diligent care. It's doing that risk assessment and sticking to that turning schedule. It's the simple things done with vigilance that stop this kind of harm. Case closed.